Guys, welcome to another video. You've got Mr. Everything English, and today we are doing paper 1 question number 2. And I plan on hopefully giving you everything you need for this question. We're gonna go over the marks, the timings, what are language devices, what are words and phrases, how to plan this question, how to write a model answer, what paragraph structure to follow, everything you need. This is gonna be your one-stop shop for paper 1 question number 2. So guys, let's begin. Paper 1 question number 2, guys, is an 8-mark question. And the way I'm structuring these videos, guys, is I am talking you through the question exactly how I would expect you to be answering it on the day of your exam. So for those of you who watched the video on question number 1, you saw that we read the first paragraph, and while we were reading, we were planning our answer. Same thing goes for question number 2. We will go and read question number 2. And question number 2 says, how does the writer use language here to convey Mr. Fisher's views on books and stories of the past? Now, what does the writer mean, or what does the examiner mean when they say language? Number 1, guys, they mean words and phrases, and they mean language devices. Now, when it comes to sentence form, guys, we are going to ignore this. And the reason we ignore this, guys, is because of the following. We don't want to make our life unnecessarily difficult. I am yet to read a good response from a student where they can effectively analyze the effect of sentences as a language question. It's easier to talk about in the structure question, so let's leave it till then. We have enough between the two of these to do 2 comfortable paragraphs. So, when it comes to words and phrases, what are we talking about here? What does this question mean when it says words and phrases? Guys, when it comes to words and phrases, the question is looking at our ability to either analyze verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. And what does it mean when it says to talk about language features and techniques? Guys, when it talks about language features and techniques, it's talking about our ability to analyze language devices. For example, simile, metaphor, rule of 3, hyperbole, personification, rhetorical question, onomatopoeia, sibilance. These are just some examples of language devices that we can analyze. Now, what do these 8 and these 4 mean? Guys, look. How does the writer use language, this stuff and this stuff, to convey Mr. Fisher's views on books and stories of the past? This is my advice. We are all, as you know, looking for this question to write the following. We are looking to spend 10 minutes on this question, and we are looking to write 2 pretzel paragraphs. That is what we are aiming for when it comes to this question. But how does that look in real life? So, point, reference, technique, effect, zoom in, effect, and link, right? That is what pretzel stands for. When it comes to your technique, my advice is pick out a language device. And when it comes to zooming in, my advice is zoom in to either a verb or a noun or an adjective or an adverb. Now let's just go over that clearly so everyone is on the same page. In the exam, guys, you are looking to write 2 pretzel paragraphs. We are spending 10 minutes doing 2 paragraphs. We have to analyze language. That's what the question is about. And the exam would say to you that language means 2 things. Either words and phrases or either language devices. And the easiest thing to do, guys, is when you select your 2 quotes for your 2 paragraphs, when it comes to your technique, pick out a language technique that is in your quote. And then when it comes to zooming in, pick out a word in your quote and zoom into either a verb or a noun or an adjective or an adverb. That's the easiest way of tackling this particular question. Now, very quickly, guys, what is a verb? A verb is a doing word. What is a noun? A noun is the name of something. An adjective is a describing word, and an adverb describes a verb. Then we come on to this side. Simile, guys, is when you compare two nouns using like or as. A metaphor is when you compare two nouns without like or as. A rule of three is when you describe something in a row using three words or phrases. For example, the room that I am in is white, big, and spacious. Those are three adjectives. Hyperbole, guys, the first four letters, H, Y, P, E, hype. Hyperbole is when you hype up something. It's when you over-exaggerate. Personification is when you give a non-human human features. For example, the board was looking at me. A rhetorical question is when you ask a question in writing and no answer is given. Onomatopoeia are sounds. Bang, boom, kaboom. And sibilance is when you have words in a row that begin with the letter S. Now, these are just 8 language devices. There's loads more, and I'm sure you know loads more. But in your exam, all you got to do is pick out 2 quotes from the paragraph above. And in those 2 quotes, you must pick out one language device, and something to zoom into and something to zoom into. Now, before we plan the question, I want to show you guys the mark scheme, and I want to show you guys a model answer published by AQA. So guys, here's the mark scheme for this question to get 7 to 8 out of 8. And you're marked upon these 3 bullet points. Number 1, guys, you are marked on your choice of quotes. That's what judicious textual detail means. It's looking at how good the quotes that you have selected are. The second thing you're marked upon, guys, is your use of subject terminology. Now, what is that? Guys, those come in the form of the techniques that you're able to pick out. So, for example, if you're calling something a simile, please make sure it's a simile. If you're calling it a metaphor, make sure it's a metaphor. These are English-specific words, subject terminology. These are words that we associate with English language. So you pick out quotes, you pick out techniques. Then what do you do? And this is where the bulk of your marks are. It's the top one. You have to analyze the effect of your chosen techniques. And that is that part of your paragraph. So if we go to pretzel, which parts of pretzel are actually marked in this question? Let's go through it bit by bit. You're marked on your quote. You're marked on your technique. You're marked on your zooming in, because that's where you pick out another technique. You're marked on your effect, and you're marked on your effect. So for English language, you're not marked on the quality of your point, nor are you marked on your link. Does that mean that we just ignore them and we don't do it? No, guys, we do it, but we don't give it detail. We don't spend a lot of time on it, because you're only marked in this middle part of the paragraph. You're marked on your quote, you're marked on your terminology, and you're marked on your effect. So then you may be wondering, so then sir, what's the point of doing the point? And what's the point of doing the link? We're going to do a basic point. And the reason we do a point is because we want to make it clear to the examiner that we're answering the question. Clear, concise. We don't ever want the examiner sitting there scratching their head thinking, has this kid even bothered to address the question? We're going to address the question in the point, very basic point, and we're going to move on. Then why do we do a link? Number 1, guys, if you're running out of time, forget your link and end your paragraph there. But if you have time, do a 1-sentence link. Therefore, as you can see, the reason we link it back to a point, because a big accusation for those doing English is that you may waffle. And we don't want to be accused of waffling. Waffling is when you say one thing and you go off task. So by linking it back to the top, we make it clear that our paragraph did exactly what it set out to do in the beginning. But remember, guys, we're not doing these in detail. Our marks are all over here. That is done, guys, based upon the mark scheme over here. Now, an important point. It says perceptive and it says detailed. Guys, it says perceptive and it says detailed. Now, when it comes to detail, what we're looking at is our effect. Because you can't make your quote detailed. You can't make your subject terminology detailed. When it says detailed, guys, we're literally looking at the quality of our effect. That is why, what do I always say? We give the effect of the effect of the effect. So in your first effect, you want to try going 3 times. In your second effect, you want to try going twice, because this will allow you to get the mark for detail. And then it says perceptive. Perceptive, guys, when we're looking at this word, I want you to think about how unique is your effect. It is still referring to effect, but this is looking at the quality of your effect. Is your effect unique, or are you saying the same thing, a very basic analysis based upon the quote? Or are you digging deeper? Are you giving a good quality effect? Now, I said to you guys, 2 paragraphs, 10 minutes, analyzing language devices, analyzing words, and this is the mark scheme. Now, just to prove a point, guys, here is an example of a model answer. We're looking at 7 out of 8. So this kid, guys, they got 7 out of 8 for writing these 2 paragraphs. Let's have a quick read of their work. The old man is described as having many scars from holding fishing rods with heavy fish on the end. These scars, so that was their point, guys. These scars are described as old as erosion in a fishless desert. That's their reference. The use of similes, that's their technique. Highlights how the old man had these scars for many years and they aren't going to disappear or fade anytime soon. That is their effect. Furthermore, the use of the noun, that's their zooming in. To be ordered over a long period, it will be much more difficult to build the land back up to its previous state, as the writer's use of language for the scars in the old man's skin are almost permanent, as they are too old to reverse the damage. This is their effect. This gives a clearer description of the old man's physical appearance, and that's their link. And then they pretty much follow the same structure in the second paragraph. Now, guys, these answers, or this answer, it's not written by me. This is published by AQA. And I just want to show you guys a clear example. 7 out of 8, 8 out of 8 is a good answer. The reason this student got 7, in my opinion, and not 8 out of 8 is because they didn't go further with their effect. They did a good effect, it's detailed, but it can be better. But essentially, guys, they've written 2 pretzel paragraphs. They've got point, reference, technique, effect, zoom in, effect, and link. Here is an example, guys, of how you write in your exam, and that is what you want to be aiming for on June the 5th. So now that we know what we're looking for, what do we actually do in our exam? You read the question and then you begin digging. So how does the writer use language to convey Mr. Fisher's views on what? We're looking at how the writer uses language to convey his views on books and stories of the past. So guys, let's begin. And remember, I'm gonna plan exactly how I want you guys to plan in the exam. Mr. Fisher remembered a time surely not long ago when books were golden, when imagination soared, when the world was filled with stories which ran like gazelles and pounced like tigers and exploded like rockets, illuminating minds and hearts. He had seen it happen, had seen whole classes swept away in the fever. In those days, there were heroes, there were dragons and dinosaurs, there were space adventures, and soldiers of fortune and giant apes. In those days, thought Mr. Fisher, we dreamed in color, though films were in black and white, and good always triumphed in the end. Guys, in this paragraph, there is so much to talk about, so much. I have to now decide, as a student, what am I comfortable with talking about? I can't just pick stuff because it sounds nice. What am I comfortable at talking with? So let's begin. The first quote that I'm going to select, guys, is whole classes were swept away in the fever. And what I'm going to talk about here, so guys, this is my reference. My technique that I'm going to talk about in this quote is a hyperbole. And when it comes to my zooming in, I am going to zoom in to the verb. So that's my technique and that's my zooming in. And how were books presented here? whole classes were swept away in the fever. I'll say that in this part, the writer presents the idea of books as being addictive. They couldn't get enough. So if we're planning a pretzel paragraph, guys, I've done my point, I've done my reference, I've done my technique, and I've done my zooming in. That is paragraph 1 planned. Let's go and plan paragraph 2 now. They ran like gazelles and pounced like tigers. That's the only part of the quote that I'm gonna use. Yes, I can use this part over here and that part over there, but I'm happy with what I'm gonna pick because that is all that I want to speak about. So this here, guys, is my reference, and this here is a simile. That's going to be my technique, and I am going to zoom in the verb pounced. Guys, let's zoom in to the verb pounce. And you know what, guys, I'm gonna do a double zooming in. I'm gonna zoom into the verb pounced and the verb ran. And that is my paragraph plan. And what's my point here? How were books of the past presented? I'm gonna say that they were for everyone. There was something in them for everyone. And that is my second paragraph now planned and done. And guys, there you have it. That is what I want you to do live on the day of your exam. Don't be doing no tables. Don't be doing no pretzel drawings. You simply pick out your 2 quotes, decide what your points are, decide what your technique is, and decide what you're zooming into. Now on paper, guys, I've got everything that I need. I've got my references, I've got my quotations, I've got my techniques, I've got what I'm zooming into. I am now ready to begin writing up my answer. So let's begin, and let's now write up a response. Source A, the writer presents books of the past as addictive. The students could not get enough of them. And guys, that is my clear, simple point. Then I move on. This can be seen when we learn how whole classes were swept away in the fever. That is my reference. Here the writer uses a hyperbole, and that is my technique. So look how quick and easy I've done my P, my R, and my T. In source A, the writer presents books of the past as addictive. The students could not get enough of them. This can be seen when we learn how whole classes were swept away in the fever. Here the writer uses a hyperbole to illustrate how not a single child was safe from the clutches of these books. That's my first basic effect. Now I give my second effect. How not a single child was safe from the clutches of these books. It is as though these books spread across the entire school. They were mesmerizing and something never before seen. Furthermore, that's my third effect. The hyperbole highlights. Once you had read one book, there was no going back. You became immersed in the world of reading, and that is my effect complete. Now I'm going to zoom in. Furthermore, the verb swept illustrates how helpless the readers were against the books. That's my first effect, and now my second effect. They did not stand a chance of resisting. That's my effect, guys, and let's end it here. Therefore, it is clear that books were indeed addictive. Once you had been exposed to them, there was no going back. And there is my link. And guys, as you can see on the board, I have written a pretzel paragraph for you to use as a model answer should you need one. So let's structure it on the side, guys. I have got my point, my reference, my technique, I've got my effect and my zooming in. Then I've got my second effect and my link. And there you have a pretzel paragraph, guys. That is how you're looking to write on the day of your exam. Now look at the gap between there and there. That's my first effect. In my first effect, I want to collect as many marks as possible. So I gave 3 effects. I gave a basic effect, then I gave the effect of that effect, and then I gave my third effect. After that, guys, I did my zooming in. Now for my zooming in, I only gave 2 effects because I didn't want to make my paragraph unrealistic. I want you guys to be able to write like this. When it comes to the point, the reference, the technique, and the link, I zoomed past that. When it comes to your point, make a basic point. When it comes to your reference, just copy down any quote that you're going to use. When it comes to your technique, tell me the technique. Your P, your R, your T. You want to get that done in 30 to 45 seconds. Your link is another 10 seconds. It's the effect and the second effect where you want to sit. You have 5 minutes per paragraph. You want to spend at least 3.5 to 4 minutes doing both effects. And that's definitely possible. So guys, that is an example of a pretzel paragraph written out for you guys to use in your exam. And if I was to write 2 of those guys on the day, that would get top banned because I do have a good quality effect. I've got good quotes and I've got solid terminology because I speak about similes and verbs and so on. And I've stuck to my question using the extract as my base. So guys, look, that is how you do paper 1, question number 2 in your exam. My last point, guys, before I end this video. If you've watched my entire video and you're not sure about language devices, I think nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are going to be pretty straightforward. But also make sure that you know enough language devices ready for your exam. And don't just learn them. Be able to select them. Be able to find them in extracts. So guys, the link, the description box of this video, I will link it to my video on language devices. Should you wish to watch it, please do, because that will give you a lot more language devices that you can use for this question. And whatever language devices we pick out in this question, they're the ones that we're gonna later use in question number 5. Guys, I hope you found this video beneficial. I tried to give you everything you need for question number 2. Tomorrow we will be covering the structure question, which I call the awkward question. As always, guys, thank you for your support. It's been Mr. Everything English. Peace.